she's going to kind of talk about basically what we both did together, and then I'll kind of interject some things that we did a little bit different. There's some things we did the same and some that we did a little bit different.
Okay, so our driving question was, well, mine was, how does land use affect water quality in the Kentucky River watershed? Was that? I had
my kids try to focus on the variety of organisms. So it was how does land use affect water quality, which impacts the variety of organisms we find in the Kentucky River watershed. So trying to tie more into our 7th grade students.
And let me just stop there.
Yeah.
Make that clarification. So some of you have talked about, well, I'm not sure how to fit this into my curriculum. So I understand the differences in why Kathryn decided to be more specific in her question to focus on an area that was connected back to her standards, which she did.
Right. So we tied it to, we kind of made it tied to the standards of, in 7th grade we were supposed to teach why are some organisms more likely to reproduce and successfully than others. And then, so I kind of made a unit plan listing the standards, how we do it at Fayette County. But our instructional outcomes are up here, I'll let you read them. But that's kind of, on your template, I think a lot of you guys were struggling yesterday about what do I want students to learn, what understandings do we want students to have. That's kind of what I connect to our instructional outcomes when you would make a traditional unit plan. So what is it that we were trying to get them to learn? To model watersheds, explain what a watershed is, cause and effects of pollution, collect and analyze data to draw conclusions about water quality, identify organisms, and then explain how environmental and genetic factors influence an organism's survival. So we started out, our first lesson, our first benchmark lesson was the What is a Watershed PowerPoint, which is on the Watershed Resources webpage for this. So we went through that. I kind of created some, like a note packet for them to fill in as we go, because otherwise they don't listen when we take notes or when you do a PowerPoint. Before we did this, we did the watershed modeling activities with the dish pan and the newspaper that you guys did that earlier. And then also the nesting bowls, which I think would have worked better than chocolate fountain. Like all the kids were like, you guys get a chocolate fountain, and I voted her out. And I was like, don't ever eat the chocolate. Yeah. Yeah, that could be a whole lesson in itself of contamination. But anyway, so that was our first benchmark. And then after that, we kind of, they didn't seem to really be focused on why it was important. So Larissa had recommended the video Poison Waters from PBS, and it just has a lot of like kind of shocking facts in it about, it shows pictures of like fish and frogs that have multiple legs and they're transgendered and stuff like that. And it's just, it got the kids into it. So that they could say, oh my gosh, maybe this is why it's important, not just, you know, yeah. Okay.
Can I ask a question?
Some of the kids, one student who he was not successful in class at all. He was in my lunch group. We started the video. They were talking about the transgendered frogs and the endocrine disruptors, and he was mad that I had to stop the video to go to lunch. The kid who slept in my class every other day of the year, did absolutely no work, but was like this, watching that video. So it was really an engagement piece for us to get the kids caring about water.
Okay, so I want to interject. So you originally didn't plan from the get-go to show that video, right? But it was more like a just-in-time video because you learned about it from Larissa, and, and it served the purpose of it.
It was kind of in our, we had heard about it, and we were like, well, we'll see if we have time. It wasn't one of our benchmark lessons. It wasn't our planned benchmark lesson.
That's exactly so, but I want to make a point of that because that happens all the time, right? You plan a unit, and it's not something you maybe plan to have, but then you see that there's a need for it, and so you can consider that a just-in-time benchmark lesson, served a purpose.
Yeah.
So.
And so during the video, I had my students make a T-chart in their notebooks, and it had like causes of pollution and effects on organisms. So you know, there were lots of different causes like nitrogen from animals, a lot about poop, chicken poop. And then the effects it had, like algae blooms. They had endocrine disruptors as causes and the effects it had on wildlife. They also talked about how water treatment plants don't test for those things, so you don't really know if they're getting it, if they're getting through the system or not. And then there was this whole section on like land ownership rights. So it was about a community where they were trying to get people to commit to not like developing their land because that would cause more pollution. So I paused it quite a few times. Like I ended up stretching it into 3 days because it was so engaging for the students. But we had a lot of pause and discuss moments with that. They got them interested in caring. There was a lot of like debate going on in class about video. So then after that, we learned how to do some actual water testing. I don't know that I don't have a picture.
I think I have that in my. Yeah, I think I have the document. We actually, so our student growth goal this year was on planning and carrying out investigations. So we actually built our benchmark to do our final test for our student growth goal on how do we know if water quality is good or bad. So the kids actually tried to come up with, they had read about different water quality tests, different factors that we look for in water quality, and then we had the kids try to come up with, okay, I've got 3 water samples, which one's good? And the kids had to try to come up with a way of testing that and a way of carrying that out. And then we kind of helped them with the actual test kits, like giving them the directions for how the actual like dissolved oxygen kit works and the pH kits and all that stuff. So that was a big benchmark that took several days.
We made stations and they had directions for a specific test at their station. And some classes I got through, like I let them switch stations and learn 2 tests. Some classes that were time wasting classes or my lunch group only learned 1 test, and that was okay. So then after they learned how to do the chemical water testing and pH and conductivity, then we learned about macroinvertebrates. So we, Kathryn found a fun game on the Trout in the Classroom webpage called Catch the Critter. So we used it in conjunction with what we learned in this workshop about macroinvertebrates using dichotomous keys. So first what I did was have them go through and learn how to use a dichotomous key, like, you know, okay, how many legs does this have? Does it have 6 legs? Okay, turn to page 5 or whatever. Then they practiced on their own, and then we played this Catch the Critter game, which was like memory. But depending on what kind of matches you had, they had like level 1, level 2, level 3 macroinvertebrate matches.
So your score.
You got more points if you got level 1 organism than you did for level 3. So that helped them understand, not just learn how to identify it, because I wasn't really interested in whether you memorized what a caddisfly larva looks like. I was more interested that you could look in your key and find that way how you know, what critter it was. But this really hit home the fact that you might have found only 3 organisms and your partner found 5, but you had level 1 organisms, so you won the game. So depending on what you found, meant your stream was a little better.
We also utilized Bluegrass Green Source, and I'm not sure which counties they work with, but I know they work in Fayette County, and I know they work in some of the surrounding counties. They have several lessons on macroinvertebrates, and so they actually, they're like our whatever educator who works with our school came out, and she brought like preserved specimens of macroinvertebrates, which was really helpful. Like she gave like a couple to each table, and the kids tried to use the key from preserved specimens, actually seeing them. And then we did like some picture game, like picture quizzes where they had like we put the picture up on the screen and they had to try to identify them. So we did several lessons that were all related to what is a macroinvertebrate, how do we use those for water quality, and we tried to kind of tie it in a little bit to our standards of, so how are these macroinvertebrates like other living things? So like the question that everyone else in our district was using was, how are other living things like me? That was their essential question for this unit. So we tried to tie in, okay, so what about this macroinvertebrate is like me? Or what about the fish that lives in there is like me? And how are they alike? How are they similar? Trying to make those kind of connections between how they get their oxygen and trying to make some of those connections for the kids while still trying to hit our standards for the unit.
So then, after they had learned how to do water quality testing and learned how to identify macroinvertebrates, then it was time to go on our field trip. We split them into groups, not based on class, so we mixed up all our classes. We kind of tried to, or I did try to like divide out my ability levels and also my behavior kids, so that maybe there was only 1 or 2 behavior problem kids per group, not a group of behavior problem kids. Because I find that the kids that know how to behave sometimes will gang up on the one that's being goofy and say, oh, really, this for us. And it actually worked out really well for me. So we went on our field trip. I took my kids to Veterans Park in Lexington. Kathryn took hers to Bellwood Park. So I had originally planned on being in the same stream, just downstream from Kathryn's group, but it had rained a lot. And my kids would have drowned if they had gotten in West Creek, which I would encourage you, if you can, to do your field trips in the fall. Although, who knows, the rain we've gotten this fall might be
Just
do trips too, yeah. But yeah, so it was a cold and rainy day, but we went on our field trip anyway. The kids had a lot of fun. They were not expecting it to be as wet and muddy as I had told them. Like, really, guys, wear shorts.
Bring clothes to change
into, but
bring other shoes.
So we had issues with janitors being mad at us, which was okay. We had issues with parents being mad because their kids had said, I'm not getting in the creek, so I'm not gonna bring clothes, and then they
wanted to get in
how everyone else was having fun and got in the creek. But overall, it was a great field trip.
And where we split our teams and went to 2 different creeks, that then gave our kids comparison data. So we could look at the same creek in essentially, sort of, kind of. Hers was a tributary, but the same watershed at least. Both neighborhoods that our kids were familiar with, the parks that our kids go to. I had to be kind of specific in my choosing of a park because I had a kid in a wheelchair, so I had to make adjustments so that he could participate as much as possible. So I picked a park that had a nice paved trail that went about 6 to 10 feet from the creek at most points. So his group was really good about bringing the water samples up to him and doing the testing with him so that he could participate fully or as fully as possible. I also walked my kids to a creek that's behind our property. It's not on school property, but we can walk there, do the quick water testing, and walk back. I had the luxury of having a practicum student at that time, so I had a second chaperone because we had to have 2 people to go to keep our chaperone numbers because it's technically a field trip if you're walking to a park that's not on school property. So I had the freedom to do that where Jen didn't have an extra person in her room all day. So that, I think that was the main reason why she didn't get to do that. But then that gave another creek in the same watershed that our kids could use comparison data for. And that gave me a chance to, with all of my kids, explain, here's what you're gonna do next week on your field trip without me. So like the field trip, I wasn't helping them as much as I could, like trying not to help them do their water quality testing, do their habitat assessment, do their macro testing. We did have to help in some cases because we did have one of our macro testing sites was a little deep, and Becky knows because she got in several times to get stuff out so the kids could see it.
The water is definitely deeper than my
Yes.
height.
So the water was kind of deep, and then the first group was able to get in. The second group, the slopes were kind of really muddy and hard to get in and out safely. So then we started just pulling rocks up out of the creek so the kid into wash basins, and then the kids could still identify the macros in the wash basins for that station. Now a little bit further downstream where we had a second station, it was a little shallower. It was wider in that section, so they were actually still able to get in.
So before the field trip, and I forgot to mention, before the field trip, I made my kids pick a sub-driving question. So they knew the big question, how does land use affect water quality? And I had them come up with like 4 or 5 ideas, and a lot of their ideas really sucked. Like, what is a watershed? That's not a research question. That's something you can Google. So I ended up kind of, I used their little list of 5 as an exit slip, and then I kind of marked the ones I really liked. I gave some suggestions. There were a few kids that just refused to either follow my suggestion or pick the question, and so I for them. But a lot of our kids made their question either how do the 2 creeks compare, some sort of compilation of that, or how healthy is my stream, or what lives in my stream.
How do they define healthy?
Good question.
It depended on the kid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we didn't, I guess I didn't really go over that much with them other than that. We learned when we were learning water testing and macroinvertebrates, we learned like what are the good parameters for each, pH or conductivity, nitrates, phosphates, and then what macroinvertebrates would be indicators of good water.
Yeah. So that was part of our benchmark in the what is water quality, and then how does that affect macroinvertebrates and things that live in the stream. So those were built into our benchmarks before they had started.
So when we got back from our field trip, and I told them based on what their question was, they needed to really make sure that they had paid attention to that part, like that station of the field trip. So if you're focusing on the critters, you need to make sure you pay attention. I mean, they should pay attention all the time, but let's be honest. But like, you need to make sure that you're one of the people that's down in the creek, like looking hard to make sure that you find the data that you need. And so I had my students do 2 different summative assessments of what they learned. I had them do a PowerPoint presentation, and then I also had them write I call it a magazine article, but it was like a whole summary of the unit, including what we did up to the field trip to learn about things and what we did on the field trip. I had them put in like funny anecdotes, but also information and data. So this is a sample of a student PowerPoint. This is probably the best one I got. So, but her sub-driving question was comparing the 2 creeks that we had data from. But I had them kind of give a little introduction, and then they wrote down, I call it a big question, not a driving question. And then they had to write their question. They made a prediction. They had to, say why they thought their prediction was what it was. They talked about how they collected their data. I think she forgot to put her map on. And then they had to put their data in and some pictures. So yeah, this was kind of, she went a little above and beyond what most of them did, but it was just an easy way for them to summarize what they found. It was almost like a lab report. And then for the magazine, so I gave them a template that they could use or they could make their own. Most of them used my template, but they just kind of wrote it up and included pictures. And they seem to like that more than the PowerPoint. A lot of them talked about following somebody else following.
So I added a little piece when the kids came back from the creek. So the kids were in groups on our big field trip. They collected data. They had a packet. We spent a lot of time and effort, and with a little bit of help from Larissa's experience having done this before, we had a journal, a packet that they had to fill out at each station. But when my kids came back, I had the computer lab in the library, and I used Padlet. And so I don't know how many people are familiar with Padlet. It's a free, kind of like a wiki space, but it's a little prettier. So it's easy to customize. The kids can, like when I set it up, you can customize the settings for what the background looks like, whether kids can edit their own, like what the kids are allowed to do with the link. So I set it up at first so that they could write and add new information. They couldn't edit other people's information. They couldn't comment. They couldn't delete other people's information, but they could add whatever they wanted to add.
So they have to log in, obviously.
Well, it's not a login. You just give them the link, and then you just click on it. So, so these are my links. I had them all listed on my website. Now, at the time, they could edit these. Now, I've locked them since then because I don't want them, they're done with that project, so I want them locked so that they stay, like, the data's good. But each group had their own website. Okay. And so they uploaded pictures. It's really easy to add pictures this way because they can actually get to that link from their phones. If they have, like, web browser on their phone or their iPad, whatever they took the picture on, then they can just, like, click to find stuff.
What I just like is everything.
I know. Yeah. So they were honest. about what they had to have like a reflection. They had a list of like what had to be in the website, so like what data needed to be there. Every kid had to have something on there, and every kid had to reflect on it. So some of them are meaningful reflections, and some of them are not so much. If they had pictures, they put pictures. Some of them uploaded, like a lot of with the macroinvertebrates, they would go and find Google images. We also, where I took the kids to the other park the week before, my practicum student and I made this one as kind of a sample with our data that we collected from the first trip, but then they also could use that in their research. So then this became a quickly, like it's one day of them typing stuff in, and then they had all of the data from all of the groups to use as their research. So they could compare the two streams very quickly, very easily. They could find the data, they could find pictures from other groups to use in their PowerPoints or in their research and their presentations. And I really liked this aspect of their final project. And so it became a way for them to get their data into something that's usable and have something to like show off to parents and that was very easy to share.
Can they, like, if they were on two different computers, can two different people be editing
at the same time, and they can see what the other person is added? Yeah.
Okay.
So there is some of that. Like the first time they use Padlet, they can see what other people are typing. And so they want to like use it like a message board and message back and forth, and you have to like remind them that it's not what it's for. But if you set the privacy settings so that they can add stuff but not edit, because you can set it that anybody could edit what's there, which then become like kids get into wars over deleting each other's boxes, and you know. And I had them just put in their names so that they were accountable. So like I said, I need to know what you added to this website. And so they either, some of them put it at the top and some of them put it like down at the bottom. It just depended on the first person who got on where they put their name, because then everybody else did the same thing. So like one group has all the names at the bottom because the first person who got on did that. And, but it gave them a place real quick to put stuff up. I had kids that aren't typically involved and don't want to typically share what they find and write, who added a lot of information. So it wasn't just the kids who all, like the 4 or 5 kids who always share out and the 4 or 5 kids who always like answer your questions, telling you data. It was everybody had to do it. Everybody had to share it. And it's quick and easy and free to upload. And I can actually show you real quick.
I'm going to give you about 30 seconds.
30 seconds, okay. Let me log in real quick and I can just show you real quick how to, but it's Padlet.com.
Can the stuff that kids post be rearranged to have a more logical flow?
Yes, you can rearrange it.
Okay.
It depends on how you set it up. So there's different. Sorry. 30 seconds is up. I know.
Yeah. While you're doing that, Carla, you want to talk about yours?
Just talk about it.
Or if you want to do this presentation with software, you can do that. If you have any other one you want to use that, you want to do that.
Okay. But you want to go ahead and start talking?
Yeah. Okay. But go on up front so we can see.
Okay.
I asked Carla to talk because we had, you guys were in 7th grade, Carla was 6th grade.
Right. And how we arranged it at our school, since all 3 of us are from Henry County, we're the only science teachers in our schools for grade level.
And let me interject, all 3 of us is Carla, Jessica,
Yes.
and
Larissa. And so we decided when we were creating our outline for it that we would start with 6th grade being basic, right near the school, and that's what I took over. PBL Watershed near our school, the land use is affected the watershed. Jessica took it to the county, and then Larissa took it further, all the way to Mississippi Delta, right?
Lovely.
Yeah. Lovely and lovely. So mine was very basic. As maybe some of you other 6th grade teachers know, we have 3 elementary schools in our county, and they feed into our 1 middle school. So, you know how it is as a 6th grade teacher, you're getting kids from several different, not only different schools, but different teachers who have taught science in different ways. So when I brought mine in, they didn't have a great, I don't think the greatest understanding of just science in general. They had it in 4th grade as a test year. 5th grade, didn't see it much. You know, that was one of the very first questions I always ask my kids. I always ask them, what is science to draw? What science means to them the first day of school. And then I asked them, what did they do for science the previous year? And to write down as many things as they could. And they usually have a blank page. And you go back to 4th grade. So needless to say that, we kept ours basic and we kept it near the school. My overall question was, how does land use impact water quality and aquatic ecosystems around my school? We took it as just at the school area. So one of the first things I did, of course, I gave an assessment. My pre-assessment consisted, and the post-assessment was the same. They had to draw a watershed, what they thought a watershed was, and we had some very interesting ones. And some of the readings that I had done that were on the Google Docs kind of backed it up, what their drawings were about watersheds. Some of them just had blank pictures, some drew the water cycle. And then they also had, their pretest was agree or disagree statements. And I had never done that before, and I thought that was such a cool, test to do. Because, and I always make my kids, when they take a test in my room, or anything they do, if they have to guess what the answer was, they always have to put a question mark in front of the number. And for me, that's formative, because it lets me know, even at the end of the minute, that they were still guessing whether they got it right or wrong, what the answer was. And so it was amazing how many of the students had question marks at the beginning of the agree or disagree. They're always afraid of being wrong. And, it's very difficult to get that through their brains that, you might not know at the beginning. It's okay. You'll learn it as you go along. So they took their agree or disagree statements. They did the pretest. And then we started with the same activities. We started with the bowls. And I'm curious on your bowl activity. Mine, the bowls kept flipping the way I had it. Or like I'd pour the water into it, and then the top one would go flying off somewhere. I mean,
I didn't actually use bowls. Like I just looked around this graduated cylinder.
I had bowls and I had cups on top. Like you pull them up, and they went flying up. How did you?
We put a graduated cylinder as our smallest.
We had like a small
tin
graduated cylinder, and then like some sort of dish, and then it was
like a pie pan.
Yeah.
Maybe a beaker and then a dish.
And I don't think, did this year's group do that? So they're probably, you all didn't do it. So you're probably like, what are you all talking
We've got a
about?
video on the website that how we did it. And yeah, it's similar. We can show you after all this.
Okay, because it was a, when I did it the first time, we got the gist of it. And then we did the crumpled up newspaper like you guys did, I think, in your undergrad year. And that really, I think they started to see, they started to notice, the dips and the grooves and how the water was. I then took them next, and I'll just kind of read through what my outline was. Our first question was, where is my watershed? And so, and I had underneath of it some subdrive. Now, most of these questions I came up with, I had a very difficult time getting my kids into subdriving questions. My kids would just sit there just like you are right now, not a word. We would hear crickets for 10 minutes and finally let's just move on because the day's going to be over. So I just kind of went through and like I had what is a watershed? That's where we did our little exploration activities I just explained. Where does our water come from? We went back in and we did a review of the water cycle, the hydrologic cycle, and then we linked that into a watershed itself. Not just the hydrologic cycle, but actually the watershed. It says what streams are in my watershed. So then we started looking at maps and at Google Earth, and we started looking at our stream. We have right across the road from, we have a middle school and high school on the campus together, and then right across the road is a town creek. And it leads into where Larissa actually took her kids for her part of the watershed. So we could see it. The kids all knew it was there. And we talked about it. You drive by, you notice when you come in, and some of them really did not know it was there, to tell you the truth. And so then I said, well, look around, look at what you see. We went outside. We started looking at the lay of the land. First, we looked at how the land was used around our school. We looked at the lay of the land because we were up on a hill, and I don't think people notice as much how elevated the hill is until you literally start looking. We went outside and we looked around at the drainage for our parking lot. We looked at where the water goes when there is a rain or anything that happens. And then I had the kids, I divided them into groups, and I gave each of them a cardinal direction, north, south, east, and west. And I made them just focus. They took their journals out. They had to sketch just looking in that direction of what they saw. And I said, now put yourself here at that creek. What would you be seeing? Because we were in the parking lot. What would you see from that creek? I brought them back inside. We went on Google Earth, and then we focused in on the area, and we looked at exactly each one of them on our iPads. Looked at what was at that creek, and they started seeing the ones that looked toward the east couldn't see the park. They knew a park was there, but there were things in the way they couldn't see it. The ones toward the west, they knew that Newcastle was up that way, but they weren't sure. They couldn't remember what was in between. So when they got on Google Earth, they started noticing, what was there. We had a mini lesson on riparian zones. Actually, I went ahead and jumped into that ahead of time because I wanted them to see. The farmer across the road, the person who gave us permission to go onto his farm, so we just go walking field trip, had taken out his riparian zone. And it was a field, it was a
And he works in the Army Corps of Engineers, just saying.
He does, yes,
Shows how much they know.
Yes. He had completely taken out, so there was a riparian zone, great trees, and I actually thought he owned part of the land that had the riparian zone toward the east, and then when I started talking to him, he was like, no, that's somebody else's property. So we went into that and looked on Google Earth at where riparian zones were, and that there was not one in that direction. Anyway, I went back and I had them draw. So they had to create murals of what they saw from the land use. So we had, one school just saw the football field behind us, our school and the football field. So they had to draw in the middle school and the football field. One of them had the pasture land that went up a hill there. Because we're on a hill going this way, the other hill's going that way. Then we had the kiddos who really got into it, the ones that were heading toward Newcastle, and they saw the BP station. They started noticing, because we couldn't see this, but on Google Earth, how the creek goes under the road and behind the BP station.
And it's gross. Behind the BP station.
Well, and they could really zoom in Google Earth, they could start to see some things that would happen there. So those were my boys that like to get ball. So they really got into that, though, and they were noticing, that there were some riparian zones, there weren't. We saw where it went into town and so on. That led to one of them wanting to know where it went to. So I literally had a couple of boys for a couple of days, they just kept taking the Google Earth and kept tracing and trying to find how far it go. They would literally, and one of the good questions that came up, one of the kiddos noticed up on the hill, they were like, well, how come that tree line's straight and the other one is curvy? So then we got into fence ropes. Now those are fence lines. And so then they started looking for, when they were looking around the community, so, and they'd say, there's a fence line, because they knew the trees were straight, and so on. So that kind of led, I guess, into something they were questioning as they went along. After we created our murals, and I made that one of my assessments along the way. I had a rubric, a scoring rubric, and I assessed did they have on there. Because we were looking for the creek, had to be in every picture, basically. The one toward the east had to have a tributary from our park that pulls into it. So those kiddos had to find where that tributary came into Town Creek itself. Then we went into, we looked topographic maps for you. We were going to do that at first, and then I think you went into that from there. From there, I had a question of what variables determine the health of a stream. We decided 6th grade level would not go in depth as far as the testing as 7th and 8th grade would. So my kids, and then we had benchmark lessons within the classroom, like you guys did. We had it on taking the temperature, dissolved oxygen. They had to research first. They went to our computer lab in our library. They researched all the different factors that you can test for, that we were testing for. What is dissolved oxygen? Why is it needed in a stream? They went back into the classroom. They tested for it. Divided them into groups. I let everybody test, because I did this with my enrichment class. I did not do this with all of my 6th graders. So I had the opportunity to let the kids go around and test each type of indicator we were looking for. They tested, we really couldn't test turbidity, in our classroom aquarium, so we kind of talked about that. We got more to that when we got out into the stream. They also, they wanted to do pH, so we added pH in there, which I'm glad we did. They brought in pond water and creek water from their homes, and so we were able to let them do their test on that. One little boy, after he went home and talked to his mom and dad about what we had done that day, they said, well, we have a well. Can you test that? So they actually drew the water out of the well. He stayed after at lunchtime with me. And we just started, we had the Lamont low-cost water monitoring kits. I borrowed some from Larissa. And I had some very old ones that were left over in my classroom, obviously, because the dissolved oxygen did not work in them. It's hard to know how old those kits were that were left in my classroom.
They were only 7. I started buying them 7 years ago.
About 7 years
Yeah.
ago. And so we went in and the little boy tested his water. He was able to take it back and talk to his parents about it. We even had the coliform tablets in there, and so I didn't know what I was doing. And so I said, let's try this. So we did that, and he was able to take back, and just a general idea of how the water. They don't use the water in the well, by the way. Then we went in and we did some research on riparian zones. I had them go online, what they are. And then we started looking for them again. So we kind of came back, we did that at the beginning, then we kind of came back and started looking for riparian zones. My original goal was to take my kids to the local park, because there's a great riparian zone there, to have them test the water there, then to come back and go to Town Creek in front of our school where there is not on the farm. It did not work out. There was a lot of rain, as you said, this spring. It prevented us from doing that, so we had to cut out the park, which I definitely want to get that one back in there. Instead, I ended up taking them twice to the same area across the road. And the first time we went, we just looked for the pH, turbidity, dissolved oxygen, and so on. We just looked for those. Then we came back and we started researching and doing some activities with the macroinvertebrates. I had dichotomous keys. On my page, it has, if you need to go to any websites, it has lots. I didn't use all, but every time I found something, I just stuck it on my unit outline of websites I've been to, and you're going to see a lot of them on there. So you might want to check there just to see anything. A lot of our other states, I found, I had difficulty finding things in Kentucky, so I had to go to places like Oregon and these other states to find what I needed. I came back in and we did our macroinvertebrates. Then the second trip, we went back out and we specifically were looking for the macroinvertebrates. And amazingly, I was surprised at how healthy the stream was without a riparian zone there. But when we went out, the kids said, can we go back and test for the other one? I said, yes, let's take our water quality test back out with us. And so they went back out and they tested a second time for it. We had a little tributary coming down the hill, so I had some boys in that. They found a snake, and that was all she wrote. And they didn't want to look for bugs anymore. But we tested on it. We came back in, and they had to write a letter to the landowner, and they had to tell them kind of what we were doing, why we were doing it, what we found, and then some suggestions. And several of them talked about the riparian zone, and that he needed to add one in there. So hopefully next year we can take it a little bit farther. I came back at the end. I gave them the same pre-test that I had given. They had to draw the watershed again, what they knew about it now, to write about it, and they had to do the agree or disagree. I was telling Dr. Crawl when they first took the pre-test in the UK, I had kids crying. I literally had kids going, we don't know what this is. We don't know what this is. And I said the same thing. I said, don't worry, it's okay. I had difficulty with it. When they took it the second time, there were still a few that they were like, oh, I know, we should know that. I know. And then there were ones like, we didn't cover this. We didn't cover this. Oh, no, we didn't cover this. We did not do the whole thing. So I had to assure them. They're so afraid of being wrong. You cannot get that through to them. And it's like, it's okay. We did not cover that section. So just, do what you can do with it from there. So that's basically mine. And there's a few pictures of mine.
How long did your unit take?
Well, it was about 4 weeks, maybe a little over 4 weeks. The rain messed me up. And then because I'm doing my enrichment class, getting around the time, I started it after spring break, and so I tried to run it through as long as I could. The other teachers, the language arts, the math teachers, it's like every other day, I need 5 of your kids today. I need 3 of your kids today. We need to make sure that they understand this concept. And so I was constantly losing kids. That was a battle. So next time, no, I will not wait. Now, I was trying to wait for better weather, and I want to do it in the fall, but at the same time, they just know so much, and you can I did my enrichment. I had about 23, 24 kids that I did. I was not ready to take on. I was not ready to take on 180 students on a project. Right. You know? And I don't think I'm still ready to take on 180 students. It's true. Don't have interest. It's true. Honestly. Yes, ma'am.
But couldn't you expand it to past your enrichment kids? I mean, so maybe not 100
Well, we did link it. It was kind of funny because, like, when we went on, we were studying our ecosystems and so on with my other science class. And every kid in that class is in a, you know, at least one kid, if not 2 or 3 kids, are in my other classes. So it was kind of funny because we would do something, we'd say something along ecosystems or whatever, and I'd say, okay, 3rd grade people, what do you know about that? Because they would hear a word, and they were like, our parents are, we know that, you know, or they would hear these. So I would make them the leaders, and then they would take it and teach it to the other kids.
And then one last thing, I really loved the idea that you had in terms of having them make sketches looking north, east, south, west, and I bet you anything that your students' spatial skills became more developed from beginning to end. And I'm thinking that maybe some of the groups should test for their spatial development from beginning to end. I'm sure that happened, especially when you're talking about them looking in those different directions and then bringing it back to a 2-dimensional map, right?
Right.
So you're going from 3D to 2D and then back to 3D.
Right.
And so.
And one group, it was kind of funny because, you know, most of them drew, and to draw the elevation, because we were on, right? I mean, basically. And so one group of creative little girls had this idea, like, okay, we're going to make our Earth's 3D. So it did not work out. I mean, it flopped. They were trying to, because they were the farm, and they had the tree line at the very top of the hill. And so they were taking toilet paper rolls and trying to hot glue them on, and they were sticking, it was a cute idea. Okay, but we're hanging it on our hall, because I literally hung it in the directions north, south, east, and west on the hallway. And then they had to write a little blurb about what the land use was and so on, what they were seeing. And so, you know, every day you walk by and like a toilet paper roll, and fall. It was heavy. It was so heavy. And I had to stay look over top of what was on the bulletin board because it was not going to stay up there with tape or anything else. So
That's really good for landslides and things like that.
Yeah, really. But they got, and that was something that should have taken, like, to me, 2 lessons. I had them for 45 minutes. And that's something that should have taken maybe 2 lessons. These poor girls were done it probably 5 days, and they came in at their lunchtime. Because, I mean, as soon as they put them on, they'd fall off. And it was a cute idea. They had, like, cows, because they wanted to put the Charlotte cows on there, too. They had, like, cotton balls. Nobody could put us, you know.
So
they had the label cows.
So a discussion of what are some other ways that we can show this to represent 3D.
Right.
Yeah. So.
Basically, that's it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'd like to have everyone present, we don't have enough time. So I'm going to have Larissa talk, but I want to, Leanne, do you want to talk about yours at all? And I'm selecting people.
I have a question. Carla made that comment that she has a bunch of resources that, are these things going to be available to the second-year teachers?
We can make them available. In fact, I've asked them to load, we started Google Doc when we came back in January. It was actually a Google folder, which I don't have all joined. Why are you leaving your Google account? Took us out of that one. So what we've done is loaded a lot of resources on that website where they can get reading misconception readings. We had some other readings on PBL. We had some other ideas. Well, I also have them share their units.